Hello students, let us begin with the next paragraph, the Byzantine Empire. Before that, I hope you all must have seen the video links that I sent you to give you a brief introduction about the Byzantine Empire and also to clear the concept of what feudalism is. In about 395 CE, the Roman Empire was split into two, the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The Western Roman Empire declined in the face of repeated barbarian invasions. So we are aware that barbarian invasions happened, and there were Visigoths and there were other tribes, Germanic tribes that attacked. So attacked the Romans. So what happened is the Western Roman Empire declined because of the barbarian invasions. However, the Eastern Roman Empire, known as Byzantine, survived for another 1,000 years. Unlike the Western Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire sustained for 1,000 more years than the Western Roman Empire. Its capital was Constantinople. Its capital was Constantinople. So you need to understand that the Roman Empire was split into two, Western and Eastern. Western declined first because of the repeated barbarian invasions, and the Eastern Roman Empire continued for another 1,000 more years, which was also known as the Byzantine Empire, and its capital was Constantinople. Okay, the Byzantine Empire enjoyed a strategic location which enabled rulers to exploit the trade routes between Asia and Europe. So this Byzantine Empire was placed in a very important location, then that enabled the rulers, whoever was ruling Byzantine Empire, to exploit the trade routes, which were already trade was happening between Asia and Europe, so they could exploit that trade route. It was under their rule. Under able rulers such as Justinian I, the Byzantine Empire became one of the wealthiest in the world. So because Justinian I, underline that name, Justinian I was an able ruler, so he could make use of the trade routes, because he was under control of that particular location, which was very important for trade routes. The empire became one of the wealthiest in the world. Justinian I not only introduced a new system of laws, he also built many churches, including the famous Hagia Sophia. Underline this name. This Emperor Justinian I was very able also, not just making the Byzantine Empire the wealthiest one, but also creating new system of laws and building many churches. And one of the famous churches is Hagia Sophia. You can see a picture there. It is shown with a dome, and it is written Hagia Sophia is known for its architectural beauty. Emergence of the Turks. Now so far we know that Justinian I is the emperor for the Byzantine Empire, and he's made it the wealthiest empire of the world. Let's see what happened after that. The death of Justinian I exposed the Byzantine Empire to attacks from the Goths, Huns, Vikings, Arabs and Normans. Now an able empire, if he dies, what will happen? The empire grew weak and it was prone to attacks from these tribes. Please underline Goths, Hun, Vikings, Arabs and Normans. By 1453, the Byzantine Empire was nothing more than an empire in decline, surrounded by a few smaller villages. So by 1453, please underline that line, the Byzantine Empire was nothing more than an empire in decline. So the situation became weak. Okay, it was earlier wealthy empire. Now the emperor has gone, he's dead, so attacks are going to happen. Now decline was very soon, because a weak empire cannot sustain, and this empire had nothing but a few smaller villages surrounded. It was in such a weakened state that the empire was attacked by the Ottoman Turks. So just as if we just take an example, when we are weak, I mean when our immunity is weak, that is where we catch hold of when we get sick. Similarly, this empire was very weak. They did not have a good emperor or ruler. So at that time, at that weak moment or the weak state, the Turks attacked them. The Ottoman Turks. Please underline that name, very important. Ottoman Turks attacked them. They captured Constantinople in 1453. Please underline. So, they are the ones who captured Constantinople, the capital, and the Byzantine Empire came to an end. So, the Eastern Roman Empire, it came to an end. The Ottomans made Constantinople their capital. So, after the Ottomans took over, the Turks took over, they still continued with Constantinople as their capital. Next is Crusades. The Crusades. In the 11th century, the Turks captured Jerusalem. You can underline this line. In the 11th century, the Turks captured Jerusalem. They threatened the Christian visitors and later banned them from entering Jerusalem. So, they did not like the Christians, so they banned them from entering. Moreover, the victory of the Turks over Byzantine Empire led many Christians to believe that their religion was under threat. So, Justinian and the Byzantine Empire was totally the believers of Christianity, and when the Turks took over, these people who were there in the Byzantine Empire, they started thinking that the religion was under threat. It was against this background that in 1095 CE, Pope Urban II, underline this line, Pope Urban II urged Christians to go on a holy war or a crusade, underline holy war or a crusade, and recapture Jerusalem as a part of the Holy Land from the Turks. So in 1095, the head of the Christians who was Pope. He urged the Christians, he sent a message to all Christians telling them that they must do a holy war, a war in the name of God, and recapture Jerusalem, which the Turks had took over. And because Jerusalem, I mean the city of Jesus Christ, it was considered to be part of the Holy Land, they expected the Christians to go on a holy war and recapture it. That means get it back from the Turks who had captured Jerusalem. So all these people started following what the Pope had asked to, because these Christians had to follow him. They considered him as the as the representative of God. Thus, between 1096 CE and 1291 CE, underline both these lines, 8 crusades were fought. How many crusades? 8 crusades were fought. 8 holy wars were fought. However, the crusades were unable to recapture Jerusalem. So, no matter 8 of them were fought, but not even one led to recapturing of Jerusalem back. I mean, it was still under not with the people, not with the Christians. Impact of the Crusades. So what happened? This holy war happening, something would have resulted out of it. What was it? Let's see. The Crusades left a lasting impact on Europe. So the Crusades were no less, I mean, whenever there is a war, there are lives which are lost, people lose their families. So just like that, the Crusade left a lasting impact on Europe. First one, they say, the Crusades increased the Pope's authority among Christians. People looked upon the Pope as their guide and leader. It is because this Pope Urban II, who urged the Christians to go on a holy war, people fought 8 crusades. Now, if we look at that way, people started believing him as a guide or a leader. Whatever he would say, people were ready to do that. So that is the first thing, how it gave an impact. So you can put number 1 there, and the first impact is this. The second one, the Crusaders were exposed to the cultural and scientific progress of the Greeks and Turks. Now, Crusader, someone who's fighting the holy war, was exposed to the cultural and scientific progress of the Greeks and Turks. They were much aware that how much they are making advancements, okay, in both science and culture. This laid the foundation for a revival of interest in classical knowledge. So when they used to go for a war, they used to see how much they have advanced, and this probably created a revival of interest of in between these crusaders. The Crusaders learnt about magnetic compass and gunpowder from the Turks. So when they used to see how these Turks are fighting from for in the holy war, they used to come back and learn and so many things that they see and practice at their end also. So underline these two new things that they learnt. One is the magnetic compass and the second is gunpowder from the Turks, how to use the gun, okay, or probably how to create a bomb or something, which is an explosive. A gunpowder might not be used exactly in a gun, but it is basically an explosive. The use of gunpowder greatly undermined the role of knights and contributed to the decline of feudalism. So knights are basically soldiers who go on fighting, but if there is some explosive already present, I mean that reduces the possibility of or the role of knights. And when knights are not there, the decline of feudalism will also happen, because in feudalism basically is getting the land by the lord in return of protection and loyalty. So if when explosives are there, the role of knights also decreased. The next is on page number 14. The Crusades paved way for increased trade contacts between Asia and Europe. Underline this line. Because of the Crusades, Asia and Europe increased the trade. Okay, their trade contacts increased. As demand for luxury goods such as silk, spices, underline all this, silk, spices, carpets increased in Europe, traders explored the markets of the East. So somewhere from Asia, they knew that demand is there in Europe. So silk used to be exported, carpets used to be exported, and that's how people explored the markets of the East. New towns such as Venice, underline, Pisa and Genoa became the commercial centers of Europe. Till date, if we look at these places, these are commercial centers. A lot of tourists also used to visit these places. Thus, an increased interest in learning, underline travel, and spread of new ideas paved the way for Renaissance in Europe. So, the Crusades not just brought people from ideas and luxury goods from Asia to Europe, but also the will of learning new things and travel and seeing new places also emerged. And this brought the new way for Renaissance in Europe. And what is Renaissance? It is a blue word. Let us look at new words. Renaissance means the revival of European art and literature that roughly spanned the 14th and the 17th century. So Renaissance is basically means a revival. People started liking the European art and literature, and this occurred between the 14th and the 17th century. So we will stop here today, children. I hope that you will go through this paragraph once again and understand it in deeply, and just try give it a reading once more. And in the next class, we will begin from monasteries and their impact. Thank you.